Okay, any of our panelists, can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Awesome. So I'm assuming all of our families that are joining with us can hear us also. And thanks for joining us and spending some Monday night time with us. I know a lot of different things happen on Monday nights, and some of you guys are on vacation and are probably listening to this later tonight or tomorrow. But thanks for joining us. If you guys are like me, I know we're ready to get out of the house and get started in the band season. And judging from our feedback on our email last week, I know a lot of you guys are in the same boat. But at the same time, it's also a pretty uneasy and scary and anxious time because there's still a lot of unknowns, even on our side. And we want to share our plan with you tonight and hopefully put you at ease on some of the things that you have been worried about. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started with our presentation. And keep in mind that we are recording this tonight. So if you want to look back at some of the specifics, we'll have that along with some additional PDFs and things like that that you won't see tonight. But first off, like I've told a lot of our parents and students the last week or so, you know, the easiest thing for us to do right now is to say, you know, we're still a little uneasy and we can just forget about this year and start up in January or next year and not worry about some of those things. And, you know, we were thinking that multiple times this summer, and it seems like we've had about 10 different meetings with admin and people from the county and our marching band staff and our band boosters over the last couple of weeks, that after these guidelines were sent to us about 2 weeks ago, telling us that this activity can happen in a safe manner, we felt really good about where we were. We looked at the research that they used those guidelines and some of the scientific studies that are out there with playing wind instruments. And we started to feel really good about the research that was out there. And we're, like we've said numerous times, we're going ahead with band camp, but that doesn't mean that football season is going to happen. That doesn't mean that competitions are going to happen. Right now, our marching band competitions have not been canceled. We've been specifically told that they're still happening as of now, but we all know that that could change. But regardless, if we're able to safely give our kids this activity, we can find places for them to perform and share those talents that they have. But we all know what this season, the marching band activity means to our students. And we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't try our best to give that to them. Some of the specific research that's out there, you can Google specifically wind instrument COVID or wind instrument aerosol studies. And there's numerous studies out there. These are some of the main ones that I'll let you click on when I send out my email tonight or tomorrow morning. But basically, there's been two types of wind instrument studies going on. One is aerosol, seeing exactly where the air goes when you talk, when you sing, when you play an instrument. And then on the other side, they've done some paper studies to see the actual airflow. You know, how much pressure does that air have when it actually exits our mouth or our instrument. And basically what these studies have found was that playing a wind instrument in a lot of cases is safer than talking. And for me, I learned a lot looking at these studies, and it kind of made our mind up, is when you think about it, all that's coming out of a wind instrument pretty much is sound. That the air is flowing at a fast rate into the instrument, but then that instrument stops that air and just vibrates the air molecules to make the sound. So when you look at these aerosol studies, there's just a couple inches, less than talking, of airflow that's actually coming out. Now, that's not the case in singing. Obviously, singing is more dangerous than talking, and we've seen some of those studies as well. So I just wanted you to see where we were on the science part of it, as well as the specific guidelines from the National Federation of High Schools that aligns with CDC is what Hamilton County has adopted for us to use in sports and marching band this year. So I sent the general guidelines a couple weeks ago, but not the new marching band guidelines. So these are the new marching band guidelines from NFHS, and I'll also put that in my email. But basically, parents are going to be asked to fill out a Hamilton County consent form, and I'll go ahead and show that to you. So let's see here. Here's our consent form. That is the guidelines. Sorry. I'll put that in our email so we don't have to wait on my technology. And we'll continue with these general guidelines. But basically that consent form just releases Hamilton County of the liability and states that you know as a parent that there's still always a risk. There's a risk even staying at home. There's a risk for our nurses and doctors that are wearing masks 24/7. There's always a risk. So we need everyone to fill that out before we start camp. That needs to be an electronic submission that I'll send out to you. We've always, the last couple of years, brought our own water jugs. So nothing will be different as far as that goes. Students will be responsible for bringing that 48-ounce water jug like last year. And we asked for that large size so that they don't have to waste rehearsal and now risk safety of refilling it multiple times. The other basics are in phase 2, which we are in phase 2 as of today, July 6th. We can have up to 50 students in a group outside and up to 10 students in a group inside. And phase 1 was 10 and 10. As far as you can see some of the other basics, as far as rehearsals outside, we will be at least the 6-foot intervals and inside at least 10-foot intervals. As far as our marching band drill, this was a change for our drill writer in South Carolina last week. We actually asked him to spread some of our drill moves out to the NFHS 3-step interval for this season. So he is in the process of finishing that for us, and we appreciated him working with us on that. When students arrive for band camp, they're going to drive through the middle school car line that most all of us have used over the years, and we will do 2 cars wide, and it will just be the 3 of us, Mr. Broom, Mr. Walker, and myself, doing the screenings each morning. We're not going to ask any of our other staff or student leaders or parents to do this part because it's really important to us that we get these records kept in an accurate manner each morning. We will have some staggered times to reduce those wait times. But for this first week with color guard and percussion, that will be pretty simple since it's a small group. And the leadership this week on July 13th, they don't show up until 9 a.m. versus the 8 a.m. for everyone else. So that will already stagger that first week for us. In our pre-screening, we have 3 of the no-touch thermometers. The school gave us one, and we ended up purchasing 2 more this week. And basically, that's used on the forehead, and it's just 2 clicks, and we get that reading, and we will have a clipboard to ask our students 5 different questions and put that temperature reading down each morning. We're also going to do that for the directors. Each one will do a different director so that we make sure that we're healthy each morning as well. Students need to have their mask on when they get out of their car each morning. So basically, after they go through the car line, at the end of the car line, they'll either get out of their car to start rehearsal, or if they're a student driver, they'll just take a left turn into the parking lot there. But each time they get out of their car, they need to have their mask on. And when they get out of their car, they're going to, the second to last bullet there, they're going to report straight to their rehearsal area. In the past, we always go in the band room and we get our belongings, so forth. Our belongings are not going to be in the band room this year. They're going to be in some different areas each night. But in the morning, they're going to report to their rehearsal area. So most of our rehearsals will be taking place outside. And you can see here where our plan is for each group. When we say the quad for the color guard, that's the area in between middle school and high school hallways that you can't see from the parking lot. And it's just this big outdoor grassy area. The color guard will also be using the cafeteria sometimes, but in a smaller group. You can see we said outside tent. We've actually, our awesome boosters have lined up 2 of these giant 20 by 30 tents for some of the percussion to use outside and some of our other sections here and there, since we won't have all that inside air conditioning time. When the student shows up for rehearsal, we said that they go to their rehearsal area, but they will have their own designated little circle for each individual in this grid. So the only area they can choose to place their belongings and have a seat to hang out before we start will be in this grid to ensure that they are at least 6 feet apart outside before we begin. So we'll have those grids painted and taped off. We'll most likely use some rope and things like that. Once rehearsal begins, you can see the 7.5 feet mandate. And basically, if you've seen our students learn how to march outside, they're in a big block spaced out. And traditionally, we've already been 4 steps apart, which is 7.5 feet as opposed to 6, which was the NFHS mandate. So we're going to go ahead and keep that tradition of 4 steps since it's a little above and beyond and we're used to that. And if you've never been to our rehearsals, basically when we get in the block, obviously we'll always have masks on, but when we get in the block, students don't move. We have some student leaders and the director that's running that block, they will move around, but it's part of the discipline of the students. I hate to say militaristic, but that's one of the aspects of marching band is to stay still. So as far as students walking around during rehearsal, that really doesn't happen. That's more of a leadership and director kind of thing. While we're in those marching blocks, there will be a couple exercises where we will have to give a command for everyone to bring their masks down, since it's very hot outside and that particular exercise is strenuous. Because there's a safety aspect with that. And we heard from a lot of our parents in the survey that they didn't feel comfortable wearing masks outside at all. And I completely understand that. But we've entered into a new time today with Mayor Coppinger's order for masks. And we feel that this bullet point, I know this will be a debate point, and we'll see how it goes the first week, but we're going to ask for masks at all times except for those couple activities. Once we finish each activity, we'll also give a command to put those masks on, and students won't be allowed to go to their water to break out of the block until they've been given that command for masks. As far as rehearsals inside, this is mainly for sectional time during the afternoon block when it's very hot outside. And we learn some of the instrument specific things. You can see where we're thinking on those different sections. For the playing aspect inside, we will be 10 feet apart. So that only allows for 3 of our smaller sections to be inside. Our larger sections, obviously, we don't have enough room to do 10 feet inside, and they'll be outside for that. Obviously, we can't play instruments while wearing masks, but also we've said that that instrument does a good job at stopping some of that airflow that would be normal with us talking without masks on. For our breaks, this could be one student at a time when they need to go use the restroom, or it could be the full band when we give a 5 or 10 minute break, things like that. Or it could be our hour-and-a-half lunch or dinner time. We always need to have our masks on. When we're finished eating, that mask will come back on. We will have a grid for lunch and dinner times outside under the middle school car line awning, where a lot of our students will eat their meals. And we'll be out there as well as a couple of our parents to make sure that our students are staying in that grid, and that once they eat, that those masks are coming back on. I know this part is different, and I know it's sad because this is where a lot of our students grow up and have a good time with each other and get to know some of these older students that they look up to, but we're going to strongly discourage our students from leaving campus. Now that's not mandatory, but it is mandatory if they leave campus, they need to be in the same car as they came to rehearsal or are being picked up in the afternoon. So if Johnny's coming to rehearsal with, Matt Smith, then he can only go to lunch with Matt Smith. And if Matt Smith is staying and eating his food at school, then Johnny will have to stay at school as well. So I know that'll be a change and kind of sad, but we just feel like that's the safest way to make sure we're not getting out with the other public that's not wearing masks and things like that. Here's some other precautions that aren't on the guidelines we are following. At the second bullet point there, we're going to, even though our air conditioning will be running inside, we're going to make sure that our doors are going to remain propped open most of the time so our students don't have to touch those. So if they're coming in to use the restroom or they forgot a copy of their music, things like that, we're going to make sure that they don't have to touch those public areas. A biggie, on day one, each student will be assigned a chair and a music stand. So in the past, students could be using up to 3 or 4 stands and chairs throughout the day because they were always in different areas. We're going to make sure that we've got tape and names on each one of those chairs and stands to make sure that they use that throughout all camp. And they're going to be lugging that around. We're in the process of buying some face shields for our flute players, because if you think about our different instruments, the flutes are the only ones that the air is not contained inside of the instrument. So we've looked at some other band programs around, some of them are far off in Texas, that are using these face shields to prevent that airflow. So I don't think they'll be too uncomfortable. They go out a little bit from the face to make sure their hands can get on their keys and things like that. In the event of a thunderstorm, you can see our plan there. Obviously, we all can't go into the gym or the cafeteria and have rehearsals because we have to be at least 10 feet apart inside. So we have numerous areas that are going to be the same each time. We have a a storm come up, and they always come up in band camp, just to make sure that we have a good place to go. And just keep in mind, we'll always be here until they're picked up, but some of these storms that could last half a day could result in a cancellation. So just be flexible with us on that. I know a lot of you guys work and are downtown and in other places and can't get them picked up if a storm pops up. So we'll be here even if that does happen. After rehearsal, we need to make sure that our students' routine is taking a shower before they go to bed. And believe me, mom and dad, if you're a freshman parent, you're going to want that anyway. They're going to come home smelling like you've never smelt before. But just to make sure that we don't have any virus or germs on us after rehearsal, it'd be a great idea to go ahead and take a shower as soon as they get home. And let's try to make sure that we're not using the same rehearsal clothes each day, that those go in the washer and aren't used until they're clean. At the end of each evening, our students will not be participating in cleaning for safety purposes. In the past, our students have taken great pride in having different cleaning duties. And they each have an area on the field or at the tower, in the band room or in the locker room that they straighten up each day. But this year, that'll be greatly mitigated. We'll have a couple parents and the 3 directors making sure that those hard surfaces are cleaned up and that students aren't touching those. That's not as readable as I remember, but here are the camp times that we shared with the student leaders the other day. And this is a change from the last email that I sent all of our families. For 2 reasons. We are not allowed to play together as a full band yet. And so that takes up a lot of our rehearsal during camp normally, as well as right now we're not allowed to march and play at the same time. So that takes up some of our other rehearsal time. So we feel like giving the students that's right at half of our night blocks off this year was a good way to shorten our camp because of that. So you can see the first week, we'll only have night blocks on Tuesday, Thursday, no night blocks on the second week, but then our normal schedule that we've done for years where we have night blocks on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday in the final week. And we will still have lunch from 12 to 1:30 and dinner on the night block nights from 4:30 to 6. So an hour and a half each time. If we don't have a night block, we go till 5 p.m. Okay. In the next day or two, expect an email with this recording, this slideshow, our band handbook, the payment procedures. You'll get an email from me with that, as well as a separate email from our awesome booster president and vice president, Karen Brown and Beth Marsden, on our band camp basics that we always do. So that'll be info for our parents mainly on what to bring, what to expect. And then our student leaders are going to be talking with our rookies tomorrow on Slack. They'll have a Zoom link for that on what to expect, what to bring. And I'll stop right there and say, now that I hopefully have most of our families here, if your student isn't in Slack, if you'll check a couple emails ago where we sent out the student information survey, our student leaders get the results of that. Basically our student email and phone number, not our parent email. And they will send an invite to Slack for those students. So Slack is mainly, if you're new to that, it's just an app on their phone or a website on their computer, either one. And the directors and the student leaders and everyone can talk to each other all day. So they all need to be in Slack for those important messages. If you're not receiving my emails, We just now switched the last couple of weeks to a program called Cut Time. And it's a really easy program for us to use, but we still have a couple parents that the transfer didn't bring all of the emails over. So we really apologize for that. We think we've gotten most of those cleared up, but if not, please let us know. As always, we expect things to change. We all know that they will change, but our first priority is the safety of our students. We have no problem saying, I'm sorry, but things have gotten worse. We need to cancel this or cancel the season or hold off on things. But we feel like we're in a place right now with the research and what we're being told that marching band can be a safe activity. Also with our boosters, be on the lookout for volunteer sign up. We've got a couple positions there. The water refiller, this year, I forgot to mention that our students will not be filling up their own water because we can't risk students sharing those germs. So we will have a designated person to dispense the water each day and fill that up so our students don't have to worry about touching those things. And right now, believe it or not, with all the water you guys donated last year, we are down to about 20 bottles, not even a whole pack of waters. And we really appreciate that last year. We're just ready for some more now. So if you can help us with that, we'd appreciate it. And as always, try to stay away from the snacks that have peanuts or other allergies. But we'd appreciate the snacks as well. That's all for the main part of the presentation. And I think the questions that were submitted to me by email since Friday, that hopefully I addressed those in the PowerPoint. But in this webinar, I'm going to go ahead and unshare. So hopefully you can all see your screen now. And jump in, boosters, Matt, Shelby, if I'm missing anything. But I'm going to go ahead and look at the Q&A section to see what some of our parents have put on here. The first question is, where are the saxophones in sectionals? Right now, we're looking at two different areas. One is in the shade up by the Eagle at the front of the school. The other is the soccer pavilion. So I'm in the process of calling the soccer folks to get permission on that, to get some shade. As far as overheated, you know, I hate to say it, but that happens every year. And we have two parents at all times, as well as the three directors for first aid. So we do, and I know that we're probably concerned with the masks as far as that as well. But we have a lot of experienced folks with the overheating there. We've got ice, we've got shade, we've got the possibility of the band room since no one's using that, and things like that. Good question as far as the spit valves. We call them spit valves. The majority of what puddles up in the bottom of a brass instrument is condensation, thankfully. But since we are 10 feet apart inside and 6 feet apart outside playing, that, like always, will be right in front of us or behind us. And we won't be marching through that since we won't be marching and playing. But most of that is condensation. If a student is confirmed positive, great question. In phase one, we had groups of only 10. So football actually rehearsed in phase one, as well as some other folks. And that made it easy to see who was exposed. Well, now that we're in phase two and we have larger groups, keep in mind that we might have to end up canceling camp. And there's pros and cons to phase two. We get bigger groups, but also more students with the potential of exposure. So we hate the thought of that, And we hope that doesn't happen, but that would take out the majority of our band. Picking up instruments, those are still not back from summer maintenance. So just stay tuned for that. Thanks, Mindy, for asking about the supplies. We can always use some more spray bottles. I know Karen and Beth, they have bought numerous cleaning supplies this past weekend. But hand sanitizer, I know we're always low on that. So thanks for that.
If anybody sees cans of Lysol, we will need that for the uniforms.
Next question is, as far as additional instructors. Yes, we still have plans for our sectional instructors to come in, and they will be adhering to these guidelines as well. And these are instructors that are background checked as normal, but they won't be participating in the cleaning and the other aspects. But we will have a separate Zoom with those guys that we normally don't have, to make sure they're good to go on adhering to these guidelines. Where does the contaminated air go in a wind instrument? And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but the main thing of the research was the speed at which that air comes out of the instrument. Obviously, that air is going to come out of the end of the instrument, but just like talking or singing, the danger of it is how fast it comes out. Yes, part of camp will be held indoors, but with 10 feet of distance inside. Okay, if you're getting the middle school emails, but not the high school emails, what happened from Charms, it looked like, if there were multiple parent emails for one student, it only transferred one parent email over to cut time, is what it looks like. So in one of the emails that was sent out, it asked you to log into your cut time account and add that email back in. So hopefully, if not, email Beth Marsden or Sue Minke, and they'll be glad to help you with that. The reliability of the thermometers. Great question. We've been practicing with the ones that we've got this week. And I have one to stick under my tongue at home that I'm going to compare that to, just to see. But for now, I wasn't aware of the inaccuracy. But that's a great thing for me to go ahead and write down. Yes, Mr. Goggins, I see that, and thank you so much. I will get that email into our system. Uniform fittings. I don't think Jenny Stafford is able to talk on here, but she sent all of our uniforms off to be dry cleaned this past week. And when we get those back, our plan right now is a social distance uniform fitting. Some of that will be asking questions on the size. Some of that will be putting your foot up next to the shoe, putting your hand up next to the glove instead of trying some of those things on. And we haven't figured out a final solution for trying the pants on. We've thought about a couple of different things, but we'll try to update you when we've got a final answer on that. As far as a family member or any student being exposed to the virus, yes, that'll be part of the questions we ask each student each morning. And we absolutely want those students to stay at home for the CDC recommended 14 days. And we'll be touching base with them even up to that 14th day that could extend. But we want everyone that's been exposed to that to stay at home.
If I could tag on to that, Mr. Buckner, I spoke with Dr. Harwood about that, and just to let you guys know about the procedure. The good thing about the way we're doing things, folks, is that we are in groups. And the same instructor is going to be with the same group throughout camp. Mr. Buckner's going to have his group. I'm going to have my group. Mr. Broom's going to have his group. Mr. Thompson's going to have his group. Should one of the people in that group become, sick or become infected, then our job is to find out, who was involved, who was around those people, and we're to report that to our administration and to you, and so that you have that information. And everyone in that group will not be allowed to come back to camp until they tested negative for the coronavirus. And like I said, it's going to be like it's one of those things that's going to shut us down for a little while, but that is the procedure, and that's what all of us are commanded to do.
And if any of our families, I meant to mention this earlier, if any of our families don't feel safe with this plan, then we are in no way going to punish that student. And if you feel that your student may or may not have been exposed and you're worried about them seeing the repercussions of that, let's err on the side of safety. Let's stay at home even if you don't know if they've been exposed or if you don't feel safe. We don't want any student or family participating that doesn't feel 100% in this. As far as the research, yes, I'm going to send out those links in the email, and it'll be a few more links than I had in the PowerPoint as well. So feel free to look at those and make a decision that you feel comfortable with. As far as the sixth graders, the instrument tryouts that normally happen back in May will be happening once school begins, since we don't have a safe way of doing that right now. Yes, we will be rotating a couple percussionists. There's always 3 or 4 that are deciding between the pit and the drum line. And those are the only school-owned equipment that we actually have to share. So those will be cleaned beforehand before we share those, but all other instruments won't be sharing anything. Yes, we will do that, that screening in the middle school car line each day. And no, we will not do our normal correcting of student musicians with our hands. Even if it's touching their shoulders and things like that, that will be a no-go this year.
Yeah, we have to be 6 feet away from them just like everybody else.
The cleaning of instruments, like I said, we won't be sharing any instruments except for a couple percussionists just in those initial couple days. And each student will have their own area to lay that instrument each night. So as far as that goes, that'll be normal every few months cleaning as far as that goes. That'll be on a student by student basis. Oh, thank you for the question on the donations. Our website, we are changing to doing everything on our website this year. And in the next week or so, we should be putting all of our links up as far as that goes. But thanks for that question. Right, and hopefully some of those time frames on how long those germs last, hopefully that'll be mitigated by only that student using that instrument. Yeah, Gracie Bradford is great at making masks.
Hey, just so everybody knows, she made 6 for me, and they're awesome. So contact her. I'm sure Mr. Butler would be glad to give you her information. She does a great job. And she can make them look nice, and so she really is good at it. So yes, contact her.
And yes, if a student is exposed, that potentially means that the students that they were around at camp are exposed. And if that student came to camp, then yes, we will have to ask those students to stay at home as well. And that'll happen with our clipboards and our groups that we keep track of each day. The kind of activities that are strenuous, these could be, if you've ever watched our marching rehearsals where we're in just one big block, the students are spaced out and they do some back and forth formations, some across the floors, things like that. And when we started a tempo of say 120 beats per minute, that's when we feel like those exercises are too much for a mask on. So, you know, if I were to estimate the total time in camp from walking around when you first get there to getting in your car, I would estimate 85 to 90% of the time they'll have the masks on, and about 10 to 15% of the time would be these marching activities or the playing times that they will not have the mask on. Thanks for all those great questions. I know some of you have other questions. Feel free to send me. And as always, this could change. Our administration is still in the process of looking at some things. And I know I'll be the first one to say it, that the masks are the biggest point of contention. Looking at our family survey, a lot of families believe that the CDC website and the recommendations state that if a student is outside, then that takes care of, if a student is outside socially distanced, then that takes care of the need for a mask. Others feel that we need to have a mask on all the time. And I know that not everyone's going to feel 100% safe with the option we go with. But right now, just under strenuous activity will we take the mask off. And you know, if our students are overheating and we feel like that's hurting them, then that's another meeting we need to have as families and the directors and the administration to see where we need to go after that. Am I missing anything? Boosters, directors, I really appreciate you guys asking those questions.
Yes, those are wonderful questions, and we appreciate that. And if you have any more, just please contact us. But I want everybody to understand here that we're looking out for the safety of our kids. We're looking out for the safety of our instructors, for our directors, and for our teachers and everyone out there. We are not operating on our own here. We are operating within the guidelines of our administration and our school board. So we're not doing anything here that is not above or out of, we're not doing anything on our own. Everything has been by the direction of our administration and our school board. So just understand that we are looking at out for the safety of our students and our staff. And we're hoping that we can, in this odd time, provide, this experience, for the students, and they really, really enjoy it. And we're just looking forward to seeing them again. We look forward to seeing you again in a safe way. And we hope that everybody has a wonderful, wonderful rest of the summer.
And I'll say this before we go. I know a question that didn't come up that a lot of us are thinking is, how do we make sure that everyone is adhering to these rules? And I know that's on my mind and on a lot of people's minds. The good thing about marching band is it happens in a disciplined format. Like I said, with us standing in the block and we don't move a lot, that's unlike a lot of other sport activities. The discipline of that takes care of itself. And we're hoping that with our eyes and the grids that we lay out and the parents' eyes that are volunteering, that we can keep everyone on track. I know it's going to be uncomfortable wearing these masks, because the more I wear them out in public and things, the more irritating they seem to become. But if you have any suggestions as far as a mask that is comfortable to wear for hours at a time, maybe one that goes away from your face, extends, but still attaches to your chin and things, so you don't feel all the heat bouncing back, Would love to hear those recommendations and get those to the kids, because I know that's going to be the biggest thing. We're going to get to see each other and have an awesome time, but the mask is going to be the frustrating part for our students. But if you don't know our students very well and you're a freshman parent and don't know how amazing these upperclassmen are and how mature they are, I think once you get to know them over the next couple months, that you'll feel safe with our student leaders and the example that they set. And it's unlike any other group of kids that I've been around. I'll tell you that.
I just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our amazing parents and even the friends of parents. We just got an entire pallet of water donated to us from the friend of a parent. Yes, Daisy Elliott's best friend Jessica is donating. That's about 2,000 bottles of water. So
Wow.
Thank you guys. That's amazing.
That is great.
Yeah.
And thanks for that reminder, Beth. Thinking about when we need bottles of water, a lot of time football games, things like that. I know some of you are thinking about the games. I'll tell you right now that the football season is still up in the air. And if it does start, it'll be September 18th at the earliest, which is about 4 or 5 weeks later than normal. And right now, social distancing is required for transportation. So obviously, there aren't enough buses in the county for all the bands to take 10 buses. So most likely, if we are asked and allowed to perform at a football game, we will ask parents to drive each student. So if you're thinking about that, that's our plan right now, is parent transportation.
I did see a question about donations and where to put them. If you do want to donate water or snacks, you can put them by the band room doors. We will be there this week and next week, so we can bring them inside, and thank you for anything that you do bring.
But Mr. Buckner, maybe you want to mention something about the face mask for the flute players.
Yeah, I talked about that.
Okay. Sorry, I missed.
Okay, I'm just writing another question down. Anything else?
Drew, there's a couple more questions in the Q&A if you want to look at them.
Okay. Shield instead of a mask. I'm not sure on that. I will ask that tonight in an email to the administration, but I believe I saw somewhere on CDC the benefits of cloth masks versus shields, and I'll need to check on that. Thanks a bunch. As far as, obviously we don't accept cash anymore, AJ. So only the treasurers will be dealing with the checks and stuff anyway. But thanks for that question. Okay, yeah, I'll get an answer on the shields versus masks because I'm not sure on that either. Good deal. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to shoot us an email. And in the handbook that's coming out soon, you'll see who to direct each question to. As far as different areas of the program, we have a lot going on. So to help make sure that we don't get bombarded in each area, you'll see in the handbook where to direct each of those questions. But thanks again for joining us on this Monday night, and make sure your students are ready for their rookie Zoom tomorrow. So make sure they get in Slack and are talking with their sections, because most of their info from now on will be from Slack. Thanks a bunch. Have a great night.